time off your task schedule to join this webinar for us. And today we have more than 500 editor journals joining this webinar. They are from various universities from Aceh to Sorong, government agencies, and professional associations. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to invite Director of Intellectual Property Management to deliver the opening remarks. Please welcome Mr. Heri Hermansyah.
Okay, Ms. Hardiana, I want to share screen. May I get authority to share screen from my computer? Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good morning, Honorable Professor Editorial Journal, Elsevier, and all audience in this workshop.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you very much to Elsevier and Editorial Journal, and also Pak Lukman and team who has arranged this workshop. I hope this workshop can give professional management and conduct for every journal editor to enhance the quality of the journal management. Here, I would like to introduce, maybe this is not introduced because almost all researchers in Indonesia already know this system. In Directorate of Research and Directorate of Research and Community Engagement, we have an example of typical research grants. The research grant start from announcement, and then submission, selection, decision, and then research operation after contract, and then monitoring evaluation in the middle of the research, and then after that, at the end of the years, reporting, and also output evaluation. The output, typical of the output of the research in various schemes under research management in our ministry, typically intellectual property right, article in journal publication, product, prototype, model, policy brief, and others based on their research scheme. And then about journal publication, of course, we want in universal standard, the journal should be published on peer-reviewed journal. So in Indonesia, we have more than 4,000 local journal, and we want to make all in high quality standard and manage in professional manner. About the journal policy, quality of content, journal standing, regularity, and also online availability. The result, as I mentioned before, that the output is various, intellectual property, etc. And now we talk about article in journal publication. In case of publication, for the last 5 years, we have exponential increase in publication. Yeah. But of course, there is still we must improve about the quality, not only the productivity, but also we must improve about the impact, the quality of the publication. And then about the publication impact is a requirement for the world-class university. In world-class ranking, the measurement of the citation is mean the publication impact. The citation per faculty is required in world-class ranking. And then in our education system also, to graduate from doctoral degree, and also to increase ranking to be a professor, publication in international journal index is also required. And at this time, we have about 4,895 journal, local journal in managed in Indonesia. And then this is increased exponentially also from 197 and 333 before. We have two systems at the time, accredited by LIPI. Yeah, this is at the time accreditation A and B, and now we convert into S1 and S2, SINTA 1 and SINTA 2, and also this is accredited by our national Ministry of National Education before. This system is merged from LIPI and our Ministry of Education under Arjuna system, Akreditasi Jurnal Nasional system. In this national journal system, we have 6 level of journal quality, and at this time, from about 500, yeah, now we have almost 5,000 local journal, and then of course this journal is varied in quality, yeah, and our directorate we manage to support how to manage professionally quality standard, etc., and also the local journal how to go international. And then before I ended my presentation, yeah, of course we must we proud by that in the last 5 years our publication is increased, yeah, but we must not forget the publication is not our goal. If we see the trend of IPR and publication, intellectual property right and publication in, for example, in China, Korea, and Japan, we can see that the production of the IPR in their country much higher than publication productivity. Yeah. In China, initially, their publication is higher than IPR productivity. And then in 2011, the IPR productivity here we can see higher than the publication productivity. And then now we can see the country which has IPR productivity more than publication productivity, they have national branded product. They have national branded product. So if we see Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia, we can see that our publication increase. Singapore and Malaysia also slightly increased, but their IPR productivity is still low. And we can see by this data that Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia, we have no national branded product. Even Singapore is rich country, but we still don't know what is their national product, because we can see this, their IPR below their publication. So we can see the pattern of the China. Yeah, publication increase, yes, still increase. We must increase. It means there is a risk output activity, but don't forget, publication is not enough. We must shifting publication and IPR. Yeah, we hope publication increase, and also this IPR, this just slightly increase. We want this increase very much, and in one time in the future, we hope this IPR production can reach more than our publication. In that time, if we can achieve that time, yeah, we believe that our national product will be produced and we will find it in the market. I hope all of the researcher can do research in high quality. The journal editor, the journal, more than almost 5,000 journal in Indonesia can improve their quality from S6 into S5, S5 into S4, S4 into S3, S3 into S2, S2 into S1, and all those journals also can go globally, yeah, well known in their field in the future. Okay, and then we also have Science Technology Index. This is already has interoperability with many sources, with Pededicti and sisters, library, and others here. Yeah. And also we connect with Scopus, Google, and also Web of Science for synchronize the research output of each authors. Okay, thank you very much for this opening. I hope this workshop will be very successful. I have seen that more than 500 already attend this meeting, and I heard more than 1,000 already registered. So I hope, just like the publication, number is talking, yeah, but number is not enough. We go to higher quality, the impact, yeah, the impact of this workshop, we expect can increase the quality of the journal in Indonesia and can go, and it can support the journal to go global. Thank you very much. Ms. Hardiana, I give it again to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Heri Hermansyah, for the wonderful remarks and shows the development trends of Indonesian journal. Now we are continuing our next agenda. We would like to invite our first panelist, Head Division of Scientific Journal, Mr. Lukman, to deliver his slide, named Government Policy of Indonesian Scientific Journal to Global Indexing. Please welcome Mr. Lukman.
Thank you, Ms. Dias. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greeting to all of us, to the Honorable Ms. Professor Heri as a Director of the Intellectual Property, and then the speaker from Elsevier, Mr. Alex, Mr. Derrick Duncombe, Mrs. Priyanka, and then speaker from Indonesia, Prof. Slamin, Prof. Komang, and Prof. Study, and then editor journal as a participant to this workshop. Is attended right now is more than 600 people. I hope until today we have the 1,000 attended to this international webinar. And first of all, let us praise and thank to God Almighty, because only for His mercy and compassion can we all attend the international workshop for the journal editor. And I will, sorry for the speaker from Elsevier, I will speak in Bahasa, because all of the attended almost in Indonesia. I will share in Bahasa. Oke. Baik, Bapak Ibu, saya akan mencoba menyampaikan terkait dengan perkembangan saat ini, bagaimana tentang kebijakan dan juga bagaimana tentang progres kita di dunia internasional. Oke. Nah, baik Bapak Ibu, tadi sudah disinggung oleh Pak Direktur bahwa sampai saat ini kita terus berkembang. ISSN Register saat ini sudah hampir menembus 70.000 dan ini memang yang paling banyak di seluruh dunia adalah Indonesia, menembus hampir 70.000. Dan yang sekarang terbit dalam bentuk jurnal online, the Indonesian Journal Online is more than 10,000 jurnal. Jadi jurnal yang sudah online lebih dari 10.000. Dan kemudian yang terakreditasi tadi sudah disampaikan oleh Pak Direktur adalah kurang lebih hampir 5.000 dan hampir kita punya 2.000 usulan akreditasi sehingga nanti di akhir tahun akan ada kurang lebih 7.000 jurnal yang terakreditasi secara nasional. Nah, kalau kita lihat dari pertumbuhan jurnal, tadi sudah disinggung oleh Pak Direktur bahwa memang kita terus meningkat dari tahun ke tahun, dari tahun 2007, kami memantau jurnal-jurnal yang sudah terdaftar di SSN terus meningkat. Kemudian juga dari sisi nasional akreditasi itu sangat meningkat drastis. Dan yang terindeks Scopus ini yang memang meningkat, tapi ini hanya sedikit peningkatannya dari 15 ke 20, 23, 36. Memang meningkat, tapi peningkatannya adalah sedikit. Sampai saat ini yang sudah terindeks Scopus index is 64, jadi ada 64 jurnal. Dan yang membanggakan saat ini, kalau Bapak Ibu lihat progres jurnal-jurnal kita yang terindeks di DOAJ, dari tahun 2009 kita adalah peringkat 66, paling bawah di seluruh dunia. Itu hanya ada 3 jurnal. Tapi saat ini kita adalah the first in the world untuk open access journal. Jadi ini yang patut dibanggakan adalah paling tidak kita sudah membuka diri bahwa inilah Indonesia. Inilah Indonesia dengan segala macam penelitian yang sudah dilakukan dan kita akan buka ke seluruh dunia. Kenapa kita buka? Padahal penerbitan di Indonesia itu kan adalah profit, sementara di Indonesia malah dibuka semua. Karena saat ini yang paling penting adalah kita dikenal. Jadi kenapa kami dari pihak Kemenristek BRIN itu sampai saat ini mewajibkan seluruh pengelola jurnal di Indonesia adalah untuk open access. Saya ulangi lagi, mewajibkan seluruh penerbitan jurnal di Indonesia untuk open access. Karena kalau kita startnya langsung membayar, orang tidak akan ada yang mau masuk ke jurnal kita karena belum tahu kualitasnya. Tapi kita buka dulu jurnal kita sehingga orang bisa tahu kualitasnya seperti apa. Jadi inilah yang kita kejar saat ini baru pada tataran open access dan kualitasnya itu kita akan segera tingkatkan. Nah, Bapak Ibu, ini kemarin ada hampir 600 jurnal yang sudah kita akreditasi di periode pertama. Tapi kalau dilihat dari kualitas, ini the quality for the Scopus index is just 7. Jadi kualitas yang memang baik ini baru 7, 49, baru 60. Berarti baru ada 10% yang memang secara kualitas ini yang memang baik. Sisanya adalah menuju. Nah, ini kami harapkan adalah apa Bapak Ibu? Kami harapkan semua jurnal terus bergairah untuk bisa meningkatkan indeksasi, meningkatkan kualitas sehingga bisa terindeks di global, tentunya di Scopus. Nah, Bapak Ibu, ini pun juga menjadi kesedihan kita bersama bahwa saat ini sebaran jurnal itu tidak merata dari Aceh ke Papua. Ini ya juga yang menjadi PR kita. Mohon saya pikir yang hadir hari ini itu hampir 1.000 itu yang tataran jurnalnya di peringkat 2, peringkat 3 itu bisa terus menularkan ke teman-teman lain yang ada di Indonesia Timur, di Kalimantan dan di terutama yang memang jurnalnya sangat terbatas dari sisi kualitas. Nah, Bapak Ibu, ini sampai saat ini kita terus tadi saya melihat hampir 2.000 Bapak Ibu yang sudah mendaftarkan jurnal untuk diakreditasi. Ini menjadi tantangan buat kita adalah bagaimana mendampingi dari sisi kualitas. Nah, Bapak Ibu, ini adalah saat ini peta dari sisi DOAJ sudah kami sampaikan. Nah, perlu kami sampaikan adalah kita ada 38.000 jurnal yang terindeks di Scopus di seluruh dunia. It's almost 38,000 journal index in Scopus in quarter 1, quarter 2. But in Indonesian journal, right now is just 64 journal. 64 journal already accepted to Scopus. It's no more than 1%. It's no more than 1% from all of the journal index in Scopus. So the main problem, how to Indonesian journal all of the participant can index in Scopus. Jadi ini Bapak Ibu, saya berharap dari yang hadir hari ini, kalau memang ada nanti 1000, ya, itu paling tidak 50 jurnal sudah bisa masuk ke Scopus, sudah alhamdulillah sekali, syukur bisa 100 semuanya. Dan saya yakin teman-teman di Indonesia bukan tidak mampu atau tidak bisa, hanya belum tahu saja caranya bagaimana. Saya ulangi lagi, saya yakin yang teman-teman hadir di sini bukan berarti tidak mampu atau tidak bisa masuk ke Scopus, hanya belum tahu saja caranya. Nah, oleh karena itu penting Bapak Ibu untuk menghadiri pertemuan hari ini, karena Bapak Ibu akan dikasih tahu rahasianya supaya bisa terindeks Scopus. Ini seperti apa? Nah, inilah yang kami harapkan supaya paling tidak jangan sampailah kurang dari 1%. Syukur-syukur 5% jurnal-jurnal di Indonesia itu ada di Scopus. Ini yang menjadi tantangan buat kita. Nah, saya akan buka lagi jurnal yang sudah di Scimago. Itu saat ini dari 64 jurnal yang di accept Scopus, ada 58 jurnal ada di Scimago. Almost 58 jurnal in Scimago. Nah, Bapak Ibu bisa lihat di sini, baru hanya 6 jurnal yang masuk ke Q1. Dari 64 baru 6 jurnal yang masuk ke Q1. Kemudian yang masuk ke Q2 itu 12, masuk Q3 22, masuk Q4 13, dan non-Q adalah 5. Lagi-lagi ini adalah lagi-lagi tantangan juga buat kita. Meskipun sudah masuk ke Scopus, kita harus terus meningkatkan kualitasnya supaya jurnal Bapak Ibu juga bisa setara dengan teman-teman lain dari internasional. Kalau contohnya ini yang sudah Q1 ini, paling tidak orang internasional itu akan menyamakan standarnya. Oh iya, ternyata Indonesia setara dengan kita, karena memang sudah sesuai. Tadi bukan hanya terindeks Scopus, tapi juga sudah bisa masuk ke dalam Q1 atau minimal Q2. Nah, ini adalah challenge lagi buat Bapak Ibu pengelola jurnal. Challenge pertama masuk ke Scopus, challenge kedua adalah masuk ke Scimago yang memang kuartilnya itu ada baik. Jadi kalau masuk Scopus berarti baru entry point awal, tapi ke Scimago itu sudah ke impact-nya. Nah, ini yang menjadi challenge kita bersama. Nah, Bapak Ibu kalau dilihat dari siapa penerbitan yang masuk ke Scopus, Bapak Ibu bisa lihat di sini. Penerbit-penerbitnya masih sangat terbatas. Yang di Scopus ini ada IAS ada 8, ITB baru 5, UGM 4, IPB ada 3, UI ada 3, Undip ada 2, UGM 2, UPI 2. Sisanya yang lain itu masih 1. Nah, ini yang menjadi challenge juga kita bersama. Berarti dari sebaran bidang ilmu pun juga belum ada pemerataan jurnal-jurnal kita yang bisa masuk ke Scopus dan terindeks tadi di Scimago juga. Nah, Bapak Ibu, lebih dalam lagi saya ingin memperlihatkan kenapa tadi kualitas. Nah, ini adalah gambaran. Saya ingin memperlihatkan gambaran dari berapa banyak jumlah dokumen yang kita hasilkan dan berapa banyak adalah dampaknya. Ini adalah rata-rata yang ada di Scimago. Jadi hampir, saya bilang hampir semua rata-rata awal jurnal Indonesia bisa masuk ke Scopus itu gara-gara tadi kalau dari citasi self-citation. Self-citation yang penting adalah tadi baik, tapi lama-kelamaan jurnal yang baik adalah antara self-citation dengan total citasinya itu akan menjauh. Dan hampir jurnal-jurnal yang terbit di Scopus itu rata-rata seperti ini. Nah, ini yang saya memberikan gambaran seperti ini adalah kalau ini sudah makin menjauh, berarti kita memang kualitasnya tidak dipertanyakan lagi. Tapi kalau ini sejajar lulus, wah ini berarti harus hati-hati. Ada sesuatu di dalam gambaran seperti ini. Dan kemudian Bapak Ibu, kita juga ingin melihat ternyata kelemahan kita di jurnal kita yang terindeks Scopus adalah apa? Kolaborasi internasional. Jadi saya sudah mencermati dari kenapa ditolak, kenapa juga jurnal ini diterima, dan yang lain-lain. Nah, teman-teman kurang silaturahmi. International collaboration itu penting. Tapi bukan mafia publikasi, bukan kartel citasi atau calo akademik. Tapi international collaboration yang sesungguhnya. Dan Bapak Ibu bisa melihat di sini, itu bisa melihat di sini, banyak sekali dokumen sudah dihasilkan. Tapi ya hanya dokumen yang disitasinya itu sangat sedikit. Nah, kemudian Bapak Ibu bisa lihat external site per dokumennya seperti apa. Nah, ini adalah sudah menggambarkan bahwa saat ini bukan hanya kita menghasilkan jurnal, bukan hanya menghasilkan artikel, tapi bagaimana itu adalah bisa berdampak. Nah, ini adalah fakta-fakta yang ingin saya sampaikan ke Bapak Ibu supaya kita sama-sama saling mencermati apa sih yang harus kita perbaiki, apa yang memang kelebihan dari kita, sehingga kita punya rasa confidence untuk bisa segera terindeks di Scopus. Nah, Bapak Ibu, kalau tadi kita berbicara jurnal, kita lebih luas lagi berbicara tentang publikasi. Nah, publikasi yang tadi sudah disampaikan oleh Pak Direktur, kita memang dari sisi kuantitas sangat drastis di ASEAN ini mengalahkan Malaysia dan Singapura. Tapi Bapak Ibu silakan bandingkan. Tapi saat ini saya patut mensyukuri dari rilis yang Scimago kemarin, kita dari peringkat 56, sekarang sudah naik ke peringkat 47. Tapi kalau Bapak Ibu lihat, kita masih berada di bawah Pakistan. Coba Bapak Ibu lihat di Thailand. Maknanya adalah apa? Ternyata lagi-lagi yang kami lihat itu adalah apa? International collaboration-nya makin sini adalah Indonesia makin menurun, bukan makin meningkat. Kemudian kalau dilihat dari sini, citasi per dokumennya juga masih rendah. Berarti Bapak Ibu adalah ada dua hal, kurang promosi di jurnal atau publikasinya, atau memang kualitas penelitiannya belum diakui, atau memang tidak ada original atau novelty. Bapak Ibu silakan bisa menyimpulkan berdasarkan data yang ada. Karena dari fakta yang ada, Bapak Ibu bisa melihat dari ini jumlah publikasi dengan self citasi dan yang lainnya, Bapak Ibu juga bisa melihat di sini. Nah, yang memang menggembirakan saat ini adalah persen untuk open access output Indonesia memang paling tinggi saat ini, karena yang kita perlukan adalah visibility, regularity itu sangat penting. Baru kita berbicara pada kualitas. Nah, ini yang menjadi PR buat kita bersama untuk terus kita tingkatkan. Nah, Bapak Ibu, saya lebih dalam lagi masuk ke Scopus. Tadi disampaikan, kita baru kuantitas, belum kualitas. Kenapa? Bapak Ibu lihat di sini, di grafik ini di Indonesia terus eksponensial meningkat. Tapi saya sedih, begitu ternyata meningkatnya. Lebih dari 50% itu berada hanya pada di proceeding. Kemudian lebih lagi hampir 40% ada di tataran ini. Mohon Bapak Ibu yang hadir di sini kurangi yang ada di proceeding. Kemudian lihat juga proceeding atau proceeding seperti apa. Ini mohon dikurangi. Kita lebih baik bergerak ke jurnal, kemudian lebih baik pelan, tapi kualitasnya kita tingkatkan. Dan tempat di mana publikasi, saya ulangi, tempat di mana publikasi kita harus betul-betul menjadi concern. Karena jangan sampai orang di luar sana melihat publikasi Indonesia top meningkat, tapi begitu mereka buka ke dalam sini, di mana tempat publikasi? Oh, di situ. Oh, ternyata gampang lah semuanya juga kalau memang mau masuk ke situ. Jangan sampai nanti ada pembicaraan di luar seperti itu. Saya sudah mengalaminya ketika saya tahun lalu berangkat ke Amerika, ya itu tadi ada 1-2 yang memang mencibir kita ya gara-gara ini seperti ini halnya. Sehingga ini menjadi PR kita bersama. Yuk kita rubah dari conference paper menjadi scientific paper yang larinya nanti ke arah jurnal. Jurnalnya juga kita tingkatkan. Dan yang paling utama adalah apa Bapak Ibu? Devisa kita itu lari ke luar negeri. Sehingga kami harapkan kalau yang hadir di sini 500 jurnal itu sudah bisa semuanya go internasional, yang nggak usah lari jauh keluar, itu juga akan lari ke jurnal-jurnal kita di Indonesia. Hanya tinggal bagaimana standar kualitasnya itu betul-betul memenuhi apa yang diharapkan secara global. Nah, Bapak Ibu, kami dari Kemenristek BRIN itu tentunya menyelenggarakan berbagai upaya untuk bisa bagaimana jurnal-jurnal kita di Indonesia supaya masuk ke terindeks Scopus, kemudian berkotasi internasional. Kami mengadakan berbagai kegiatan dari mulai menyiapkan infrastruktur, ada bagi jurnal-jurnal yang tidak memiliki aplikasi OJS, tidak punya server, kami siapkan. Kemudian kami memberikan hibah dan bantuan juga bagi yang ingin jurnal nasional atau internasional. Kita adakan workshop OJS, kita adakan workshop akreditasi jurnal, kita adakan workshop internasional jurnal seperti ini, kemudian kita adakan tadi pengumuman jurnal terbaik dan kita berikan insentif dan hadiahnya. Nah, mohon maaf sekali kepada semuanya, tahun ini kita mengalami musibah dengan adanya pandemi corona ini. Jadi kegiatan-kegiatan yang memang membutuhkan anggaran besar, anggaran kami sudah kami alihkan ke COVID. Jadi kalau bagi Bapak Ibu yang tahun ini sudah terindeks Scopus dan belum mendapatkan hadiah dari kami, insya Allah mudah-mudahan kalau tahun depan kami sudah normal lagi secara pemerintahan, anggaran kami sudah mencukupi, kami akan melakukan hal seperti ini lagi, bahkan kami akan segera tingkatkan. Karena kami ingin mengapresiasi atas semua jerih payah yang sudah Bapak Ibu perbuat untuk bisa jurnal-jurnal Bapak Ibu terindeks secara global, khususnya terindeks di Scopus. Nah, Bapak Ibu, saya hanya ingin memperlihatkan ini adalah beberapa yang kami dampingi sehingga bisa terindeks di Scopus. Kami harapkan semua peserta yang hadir hari ini, kami akan memantau dari pagi sampai sore hari nanti. Kalau Bapak Ibu memang betul serius untuk sampai sore nanti itu Bapak Ibu hadir, kami akan terus pantau. Dan silakan Bapak Ibu kalau Bapak Ibu submit jurnal, tolong laporkan ke kami trackingnya. Nanti kami akan terus memantau, kami akan komunikasikan dengan pihak Scopus, kami tidak akan intervensi untuk yes or no-nya. Tapi yang kami minta adalah cepat dong di di reviewnya sehingga ada keputusan. Nah kami kalau Bapak Ibu melapor ke kami akan turut melapor bahwa nanti Bapak Ibu nasibnya diterima, alhamdulillah. Kalau di reject ya apa yang harus diperbaiki. Nah ini yang kami sekali lagi tekankan ke Bapak Ibu, mohon Bapak Ibu hadir betul-betul dari awal sampai sore, dan pesan dari nanti Scopus jangan asal submit. Ada beberapa proses yang memang Bapak Ibu harus lihat syaratnya, apakah sudah memenuhi syarat atau tidak. Tapi kalau sudah oke, silakan Bapak Ibu submit segera ke Scopus supaya Bapak Ibu bisa melihat apakah jurnal Bapak Ibu diakui atau tidak secara global. Nah ini yang memang menjadi tantangan kita. Jadi yang perlu saya sampaikan itu bulan ini sudah ada 10 yang di-reject. Belum ada satu pun diterima. Kalau bulan yang lalu ada 2 jurnal yang sudah diterima oleh pihak Scopus. Harapannya ke depan jangan banyak yang di-reject. Harapannya ke depan adalah banyak jurnal-jurnal yang bisa diterima di Scopus. Dan kalau Bapak Ibu lihat, tracking pertama sampai tracking terakhir, ini adalah bagian dari perjuangan Bapak Ibu untuk menjaga kualitas dari jurnalnya, sehingga bisa diakui oleh pihak Scopus. Nah, ini adalah isu-isu yang paling banyak muncul ketika Bapak Ibu mengindekskan jurnalnya ke Scopus. Akreditasi di nasional adalah apa Bapak Ibu? Bapak Ibu skopnya masih terlalu luas, author guideline-nya memang masih tidak konsisten antara satu artikel ke artikel berikutnya, antara volume ke volume berikutnya, antara nomor ke nomor berikutnya. Reference manajemennya masih kacau sekali, belum mengikuti Harvard, APA, Chicago, Vancouver, ada 7.700 gaya kutipan. Nah inilah yang paling penting itu adalah apa Bapak Ibu, kata kuncinya istiqomah di publication quality ini. Nanti akan dijelaskan lebih lanjut oleh berbagai pembicara di sini. Kemudian yang berikutnya yang paling banyak disorot adalah jurnal management. Banyak sekali saya ingatkan ke Bapak Ibu, saya sering diskusi dengan Mr. Alex, saya sering diskusi dengan Mr. Derrick, adalah apa? Bapak Ibu paling banyak mencantumkan editor dan reviewer ini hanya numpang nama. Nama-namanya keren semua. Tapi hati-hati, Scopus akan marah besar kalau nama-nama di sini hanya numpang nama saja. Tidak ada keterkaitannya, tidak ada keterlibatannya, berarti Bapak Ibu membohongi publik. Nah, ini yang tolong hati-hati. Nah, terkait dengan infrastruktur, Bapak Ibu boleh menggunakan EVIS yang ada di Elsevier, boleh yang gratis ada di OJS, tapi tolong perhatikan infrastruktur di kita ini kadang-kadang tidak diupdate kontennya, kadang-kadang ada down dan yang lainnya. Tolong saat ini online itu penting. Adalah apa? Kita ini ditonton nanti kalau apalagi sudah terindex Scopus, ditonton bukan hanya orang Indonesia, ditonton oleh miliaran orang dari seluruh dunia. Oleh karena itu Bapak Ibu cermati, apakah websitenya Bapak Ibu itu sudah baik, apakah website Bapak Ibu bermasalah dari sisi konten. Jangan sampai Bapak Ibu serius mengelola naskah, tapi di websitenya tidak serius, sehingga Bapak Ibu dicap jurnal Bapak Ibu sebagai jurnal predator dan jurnal abal-abal. Nah ini yang memang saya ingin menitip pesan ke Bapak Ibu, supaya Bapak Ibu terus memang insight memperhatikan kualitas dari jurnal-jurnal Bapak Ibu yang Bapak Ibu sudah terbitkan. Jadi sekali lagi saya mengapresiasi semua Bapak Ibu yang hadir di sini. Ini saya cek sudah 664. Jadi saya berharap Bapak Ibu bisa betul-betul tadi serius sampai akhir, karena nanti kemudian akan memantau terus jurnal mana yang memang hadir sesuai dengan daftar hadir, dan sampai sore kita akan lihat, karena di bulan depan kami akan mengadakan pendampingan. Jadi Bapak Ibu hari ini hanya kita seolah-olah memberitahu loh, ini seperti ini guideline terbarunya. Bulan depan kita akan mengadakan program pendampingan seperti biasa, melakukan asistensi. Nanti yang sudah siap kita akan dampingi supaya bisa segera submit ke Scopus secepat-cepatnya. Nah itu Bapak Ibu mungkin yang bisa sampaikan. I appreciate to speaker from this workshop, Mr. Alex, Mr. Derrick, Priyanka, Pak Istadi, Prof. Komang, for all of the time today. And I hope all of the participants who attended this webinar will join until the end of the webinar. And thank you for all of us. And then I will closing the delivery presentation. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Pak Lukman. We have glad to have your presentation. And now we are going to our second speakers. I am pleased to invite Mr. Alexander and Mr. Derrick from Elsevier. Both of them will present Scopus Journal Selection Criteria and Process. The session will be moderated by Mr. Slamin from Universitas Jember. Please welcome Mr. Alex, Mr. Derrick, and Mr. Slamin.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, before that, please write to whom the question is addressed. Jadi Bapak Ibu mohon dapat memberikan pertanyaannya untuk kepada siapa, agar kami dapat mudah dalam menjawabnya.
Baik. Budian, bisa dimulai ya?
Silakan Pak.
Oke, baik. Assalamualaikum and very good morning. Honorable Director of Intellectual Property Management, Professor Heri Hermansyah, Honorable Head Division of Scientific Journal, Dr. Lukman, honorable speakers, especially the speaker from this session, Mr. Alexander van Servellen and Mr. Derrick Duncombe, all dearest participants of international webinar for journal editors, improving journal towards Scopus indexing. Welcome to this session. My name is Slamin from Universitas Jember. I am chairing the presentation in this session, which will be delivered by two speakers, namely Mr. Alexander van Servellen and Mr. Derrick Duncombe. They will give presentation about Scopus journal selection criteria and process. Before giving presentation, let me introduce both of them briefly. The first one is Alexander. Mr. Alexander van Servellen is the senior consultant for Elsevier Research Intelligence. He is originally from Netherlands, but lives in Singapore. He has some Indonesian heritage. His grandfather is from Central Java and mother born in Jakarta. Together with Derrick Duncombe, he has worked an innovative project to support local journals in Asia. The second speaker is Mr. Derrick Duncombe. He is Marketing Development Manager for Southeast Asia and responsible for the academic and government and corporate related product. He has conducted numerous author and editor workshops within the Asia Pacific region and endeavors to improve the overall quality of journal coming out of APEX. The time for the presentation is about 1.5 hours. Yeah, continuing with 30 minutes discussion. Please use the Q&A function for questions, not chat room. It is located in the bottom on the right button of this Zoom application. Any question in chat is not considered to be answered. Okay, and mohon maaf Bapak Ibu peserta. Jadi kalau ada pertanyaan silahkan ditulis di Q&A function ya di bawah paling kanan di menu Zoom aplikasi ini. Ya, kalau ada di chat mungkin kami agak susah memilih gitu. Dan sekedar informasi, kami tidak mungkin bisa memilih semua pertanyaan. Jadi kami akan pilih pertanyaan yang paling relevan dan menarik gitu ya untuk dijawab oleh kedua presenter ini. Ya, jadi we have nanti akan kita pilih lah gitu ya ada beberapa pertanyaan selama waktunya masih mencukupi. Well, to save our time, please join me to welcome Mr. Alexander van Servellen and Mr. Derrick Duncombe. Alexander, the time is yours. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Slamin, for the kind introduction. And thank you very much to the ministry and everyone who co-organized this webinar. Hello to all of you out there in the audience. Thank you for coming to the webinar. The reason that we're doing this online, as you know, is because of the COVID-19 situation. We would much prefer to do this in person, but I guess this has forced us all to learn how to communicate more virtually. And we hope that everyone is well and healthy and relatively sane at home. Derrick and I are presenting from Singapore, each from our own homes, where we've also been inside for a long time. But that's not our topic for today. So we're talking about Scopus content selection. And we want to teach you about the process of how content is selected for Scopus. And the goal is to help you to understand that process so that you can better prepare your own journal to one day be indexed in Scopus. So that we'll start with an introduction. We'll look broadly at how that process works. And then we will go really deep dive to look at many details of that process, what each criteria means and what the rationale behind that is. We'll look at what re-evaluation means, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions. So as Mr. Sleman asked, please ask your questions in the Q&A. It's good if there are specific questions, because we cannot, you know, repeat large parts or explain whole things, but specific questions are probably the best. Derrick, you want to say hello to everyone quickly?
Yeah. Hi, distinguished guests, and selamat pagi, Bapak dan Ibu. I'll see you in a while, yeah?
Okay, so Derrick and I are going to do this presentation together. So we're going to go back and forth a little bit. And because you know who we are, we're going to ask you now who you are. We've set up a number of polls. If they're working, you'll see a little box in your window. It will ask you a question. They are in English because my bahasa is very bad. It's like sedikit. So English, but if you could answer these questions in the poll, I think that will make it a little bit more fun. Okay, so I'm going to leave the poll open for about a minute. So far, about 100 people have answered. Okay, almost 200 people have answered. Okay, 300 people have answered. You guys are quick. That's impressive. Okay, 400 people of the 688 attendees have answered. That's about 60%. We'll leave it open for another 10 seconds, 8 seconds, 5 seconds. Okay, I'm going to close the poll just for time's sake, and we're going to share the results. So what we can see is that, no surprise, 47% of you say that you're, you know, the best title to describe you as journal editor. It is an editorial workshop, so that makes perfect sense. But a lot of you are also researchers, policymakers. There's at least 4 people who are not sure what they are. That's fine. But anyway, welcome everyone. So we see that there's a lot of different people here, but what you share in common is that most of you consider yourselves to be journal editors, and 37% of you are editor-in-chief of the journal, and a lot of you are also researchers. Thanks a lot for answering that. So I'm going to do the introduction, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this. So wait. That was not what I was supposed to do. I wrestle with my slides sometimes, and sometimes they win, but usually in the end I can get it to work. So for those of you who don't know what Scopus is, Scopus is an international citation, abstract and citation index, right? So it's a database which indexes journals from many different publishers. So we index that content from many different publishers, 24,000 journals worldwide. They come from 5,000 different publishers. And when it's in one database, it means that everyone who's, many universities subscribe to Scopus. It means that all the researchers have access to this content. And it includes citation counts, so you can see how often every paper has been cited, which then allows for some analytical features so that you can understand what each author and what each country, what each institution is doing in science. We do our best to be very representative, so we have not just the content of, let's say, the Western world, but also the developing regions, and we've put a lot of effort into expanding the content coverage of Asian countries, including Indonesia. We are also the data source. Scopus data is used for a lot of evaluation contexts, like the QS World University Rankings and Times Higher World University Rankings, as well as Ristek Brin, when they a lot of the stuff that they do is also using some Scopus data, such as what you see in SINTA, for example. Only about 11% of the journals in Scopus are Elsevier, and then you see that the other big journals are there, other big publishers are there. 60% of the journals in Scopus are from small publishers, university press, and Scopus is really open to any journal which is high quality, genuine, peer-reviewed science. So that's what it has to be. It does not matter if you are from big publisher or if you are from small publisher from a small university somewhere. It's really about the quality of the journal. We cover journals, conferences, and books. The content comes from 105 different countries, and it is in 40 different languages. So the journal itself does not need to be in English. It can be in Bahasa Indonesia. The abstracts need to be in English, and the references need to be Roman script. We will talk about that more later. Sorry. If you look at the breakdown of subject areas, you can see that in the journal section, it's 32% health sciences, 34% physical sciences, 12% social sciences, 22% life sciences. But if you look in the books, for example, you'll see that 45% of the book's content is social sciences. The content that gets into Scopus, so this is important to understand, is selected by an independent content selection advisory board. Independent in the sense that they don't work for Elsevier. They're not on our payroll. They are independent. Each of the members is a chair in a different subject area, and they are the end responsible person for deciding whether a journal is accepted into Scopus or rejected from Scopus. So you have to understand that we cannot influence what they do. We have actually created this independent board because they don't listen to us. So if Derrick or I say, hey, I know this great journal in Indonesia, you should really consider them, they will not listen to us, right? They're meant to be really a step removed and look at it very objectively. But they do this evaluation process using very transparent criteria, which we'll explain to you today how that process works and what the criteria are. And we hope that will enable you to look at your own journal and try to be objective about the quality using the same criteria as Scopus does. The way that Derrick and I and Elsevier more broadly support local journals through the years is that we've started a number of local Scopus boards in addition to the CSAB to have a group of local people to support the process of improving journals and receiving submissions. So there are local boards in Thailand, which will be expanded to Southeast Asia, and that will include members of from Indonesia to represent on that local Scopus board. We do professional editor workshops like what we're doing today to basically educate and support the editors and everyone else who can benefit from understanding this process. But we also have a platform for journal management that includes the whole peer review process as well as the home pages, and this is called Digital Commons. And our colleague Priyanka will present about that today after lunch. So if this is something that interests you in understanding how that might help and how it compares to OJS, for example, please attend Priyanka's presentation. This is Derrick and I. So this is what we look like on a good day. Back in the days when you could just meet people in person, and this is at an editorial workshop with the Ministry of Education in Malaysia. It's one of my favorite people, Professor Zoraida. I'm the one on the right, and Derrick is the one on the left. And I have a little reminder here that we're going to do another poll. So let's see what that poll is. Give me one moment. So the question is, which country in Southeast Asia do you think produced the most research papers indexed in Scopus in 2019? So I think if you listen to Pak Lukman, you will know the answer. If you were not paying attention, then moo. Okay, 200 people have voted. Okay, 50% of the people have voted, so we'll leave it open for another 20 seconds. How are we doing on time, Derrick?
We are doing very well, way ahead of schedule actually. So you can take your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 60% of you have voted. We'll leave it open for 10 more seconds. So share the results. That's very interesting. So 35% of the people think it's Singapore that have the most papers in 2019. 33 think it's Indonesia. 23% think it's Malaysia. So that's very interesting. So the question was specific. It was 2019 and based on Scopus, right? And the answer is going to be on the next slide. So I'm going to see if PowerPoint is cooperating with me. And that's what happens when it doesn't cooperate, but here. So the answer actually in 2019 is Indonesia. But if I would have asked the same question just a few years ago, Indonesia was here and has since surpassed the output of level of Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia. So Indonesia is shooting up in terms of research output. Like I like to say, it's like a rocket to the moon. It's really aggressive growth and output. What we do see, however, is that 70% of the papers which Indonesia publishes in Scopus are in Q3 journals. And if you look at here at the bottom, it shows that about 20% of the content is published in Q1 or Q2 journals, and 90% is published in the bottom. So that doesn't even add up to 100, but don't worry about that. So I think, as Harry mentioned, Indonesia has increased output a lot, but there should be a shift towards higher quality. So what we would like to see over time is for more of Indonesia's publications to be in higher quartile journals. So maybe more in Q2 and Q1 journals. But that's not our concern today. Today, our concern is to get more Indonesian journals and journal editors to understand how to get the journal indexed in Scopus. Because if the journal's not indexed in Scopus, then the content does not count towards these types of statistics. We can see Indonesia received about 9% less citations than world average, but the trend is going upwards. We see Malaysia has just reached world average level citations. We see Singapore, who produces a lot less, is receiving almost 80% more citations than world average. So Singapore is really focused, less output, more quality. Thailand produces around the similar amount. You know, I think Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand are very similar in terms of how much money there is in the research system, and output levels are kind of comparable. So these are three good countries to compare each other. But let's move to the Scopus content selection process, and I think that's yours, Derrick. You just have to tell me when you want me to go to the next slide.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Sander, and again, a very warm welcome to everybody. So for our session, what we want to do is that we try to share with you the journal selection process, but we also want it to be interactive. That's why you have the polls in between. However, we're going to leave quite a bit of time for Q&A, and this is where you can ask us as many questions as you want, whatever that you need to clarify, okay? So the very first slide here shows why is it important to be indexed in an international database like Scopus? Now, so what's the big deal, right? You may ask. So first and foremost, you get international visibility, right? Your journal will be known to everybody in the world. Second point, it increases the citations for both the individual researchers as well as the journal. You want people to cite you because everybody wants to be known for their work. They want to bring new science into the field. Third point, increases the opportunity for collaboration with other researchers. Later on, I'll share with you some of the criteria. And one of the criteria is collaboration, how you increase the diversity of editors, of authors. And this is one of the key points. Fourth point, journal data will be included in all analyses that are based on Scopus. Right now, the buzzword right now is COVID-19, the coronavirus. So if you are producing work on that, you'll see a lot of people looking at you and saying, how best can I use your data? Can I replicate that data? Can I analyze that data? Can I create a vaccine out of it? And this data will be shared globally. And obviously, the last point, you get bumped up into SINTA 1 classification. That's the goal, the eventual goal. Am I right? Next slide, please. So what journals are the CSAB looking for to include in Scopus? You know, as Sander mentioned earlier on, the CSAB, just as a recap, is an independent board, okay? And these people are looking at high quality and original content. They look at journals that are well edited and that has a long life, longevity. They look at they want to see whether it's focused upon the roots and subject areas. This key point, okay, I'll be repeating this point over and over again, essentially is the aims and scope of the journal. That's very, very important, yeah? So you must go back to the roots and the subject area. So for example, if yours is focused on environmental science, don't be producing something on physical science or biological science or any other sciences except environmental science. Be very focused, go back to your roots, do not detract from it. The fourth point, to make significant, measurable, and valued contribution to its target audience and field. Now, you may have heard of this term called standing on the shoulders of giants. So you want to build upon science, good science at that, right? So you want to make a very significant contribution as far as possible. Imagine if you had found a cure, a vaccine for COVID-19. you'll be bumped up way up there, right? The fifth point, the wider international relevance, but also valuable locally. Yeah. So as far as possible, we would like to, the CSAB would like to actually look at journals that are relevant to them on a global scale. But Scopus is wonderful because it also looks at the local content. And that local content, it could be just very significant only to you. For example, if on Komodo dragons is found nowhere else in the world except in Indonesia, right? The last point, it needs to be honest, ethical, and focus on high quality and standards. Now, this is one key point, but it's so very relevant nowadays. With so much preparatory journals going on out there, this is one point which the CSAB insists on having, okay, what we call the publication and ethics statement. All right, so these are the 6 key points that they are looking for in a nutshell. Next slide, please.
Derrick, I think we had a reminder to do the third poll. So I'm going to launch this poll here.
Yes.
I have launched the poll, and the question is, how many stages are there in the Scopus journal selection process? So we'll give 1 minute this time for everyone to try and vote, but you guys are quick. It's almost 200 people already.
I'm very curious to see the results of this poll.
Yeah, I can see the results here. They come in a box. I think so far most people have the wrong answer. Which is good. That means that, you know, we can explain it afterwards.
Exactly.
All right. I think we're almost done now. So 5 more seconds. I'm going to end the poll. All right. I'm going to end it and publish it. Can you see the results, Derrick?
Yes, I can see the results. So the majority of you said there are 4 main stages in the Scopus journal selection process. Then next one will be, I don't know, 32%. And 19% of you said there are 3 stages. Well, thank you very much for that. Let me just share this with you. Okay, I like to simplify things, okay? So please bear with me. What I'm going to show you now is basically an overview, a snapshot, if you will. But to simplify things, I just put it as 2 stages. This is stage 1, and later on I'll share with you stage 2. So in stage 1, all your titles, whatever titles that you want to submit to Scopus, all of them, they must meet all these 5 main criteria. Okay, so this is in stage 1. Though I say 5 here, later on I'll explain that there's 2 additional ones, but these are the 5 core main criteria. Okay, and what is it? It has to be peer reviewed. It has to have English abstracts. It needs to be a regular publication. It must have Roman script references, and it must have a publication ethics statement. Now, don't worry, I'll share and elaborate more later on, okay? In stage 2, now once you pass stage 1, you submitted it, you met all these criteria, then only it gets considered for stage 2. In stage 2, there are 14 quantitative and qualitative selection criteria. So, for example, within the main criteria of journal policy, there are other sub-criteria here, which is, for example, convincing editorial concept, type of peer review, diversity of and distribution of editors, as well as authors, and so on and so forth. Again, not to worry, I'll be sharing. Can you go back, please, Sander?
Sorry.
Can you go back, please? Yeah.
Yeah, I can try, but I'm having again.
Yeah. To slide 20.
You.
Slide number 20. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. So if you look at it, so there are 14 qualitative and quantitative criteria here. Okay, not to worry, I'll be sharing more with you. So Sandy and I will elaborate on each and every point or bullet point here, so that it gives you a better understanding of what the CSAB is looking for. Okay, now at any point in time, okay, bear in mind the deck will be shared with you. So if you look at the bottom here, you can see that there's an info button here. All right, so if you click on it, you'll always find the latest, the most updated information there. So for example, if in time to come, whatever criteria change, it'll be reflected here. Okay. If you have any questions with regards to your journal, assuming you've submitted your journal for consideration and you have a question, please don't look for Sandra or myself, because we won't know, because everything is in a centralized funnel and that can be found here. Ask these people here. They're the title suggestion at scopus.com. Okay, so only they would know, because it's a centralized system. Don't look for Sandra, don't look for me, don't look for any one of us except this title suggestion at scopus.com. And just in case if you think that, okay, I'm ready to submit my journal, I've met all the criteria, this is the link to suggest your title. So when we say suggest your title, okay, it means to submit your title for consideration. Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. Now this, as if you forget everything else, just remember, okay, remember this. That's why we put it out and say it's the golden rule. Always check if your journal meets the minimum criteria, which is stage what? Stage 1. You must meet all the criteria in stage 1. That is the golden rule. Because the moment you can pass through that, then only you are considered for stage 2. Okay? So just remember there are only 2 stages. 1, this is the golden rule. You must fulfill all the minimum criteria. Then you talk about stage 2. All right? Next slide, please.
I get the white screen again. So my apologies to everyone, because I keep, I use Office 365, and sometimes the version of PowerPoint here gets a little bit confused if you stay too long on one slide and you get a white screen. But we'll work around that and make it work. So this was the complete set of minimum criteria, where you said that there are 2 more that they need to keep in mind. And I think that you were talking probably about the 2 years minimum, which is very important in the ISSN. So you want to explain why that's important to them?
Yeah, that's the thing. So if you recall, the main criteria, you can see peer review, you have English abstract, you have Roman script, ethics statement, and online availability. So the 2 years content minimum with ISSN number, why do you think that is the case? I think it is, and then as well as a regular publication. Majority of you, when we did a poll earlier, we found that majority of you are journal editors or editor-in-chief. So when I look at a percentage, it's about 80% of you are journal editors. Let me ask you this question. As a journal editor, when you first set up your journal, or when you first took over the journal, is it easy to attract submissions of paper? First question, I want you to think and answer that. Is it easy for you? Yes? No? Now, only you know the answer, right? Secondly, after you've attracted, can you maintain that attractiveness of your journal for them to want to submit to you? Second question. Is it easy to maintain? Now, how do you know whether your journal can be sustained in the long run? So based on that itself, that's why we have these 2 years content, minimum content, so that to know that your journal has met that minimum threshold. It's like an unspoken rule. Can you launch your journal and within 1 month say that your journal is successful and that you attract tons of submissions? No, I don't think so, right? So this is one of the criteria there. and it needs to be published regularly. So if you say that you're going to have 4 issues in a year, make sure you have 4 issues in a year. Don't say I'm going to have 4 issues in a year, but in the end you only publish 2 issues in a year because you couldn't get enough submissions. Okay,
Derrick, I'm going to launch the poll that you set up for this.
Yeah.
And there we go. Can you see it?
Yes, I can see it. So
great.
Please look at this and then give me your answers.
Okay, 200 people have answered.
Let's wait a while more. I'll be curious to see this.
300.
Okay.
Okay, let's give it another 20 seconds and then we'll end the poll and have a look at the results.
Yeah. And the answers are, so majority of you have peer-reviewed an article. And the majority of you said that between 3 and 4 weeks, okay, it takes you to review. And then quite a huge number, 37% say that you can review an article within 2 weeks. Okay, thank you very much for that. So you know for a fact that it takes a while to do a peer review, okay? So imagine the number of articles that you have that's coming in. It needs to be peer reviewed, right? And therefore, it goes back into your regularity. Okay, how regular can you attract? How regular can you publish this particular articles in your journal? Now, we look at the stage 2 part of it. So as you know, we are very transparent. We share with you everything, okay? We don't hide anything. This is what the CSAB is looking for when we talk about the criteria here. And again, at the bottom, just a reminder, if there's any questions, once you've submitted your journal, please look at the title suggestion at scopus.com in case you need to raise anything, okay? So you can see journal policy, we've covered that earlier on, the quality of content in terms of academic contribution to the field, the clarity of the abstracts, the quality and conformity with your stated aims and scope. I cannot stress this enough. Again, aims and scope is key to a lot of things. The readability of your articles, the journal standing, the citedness of journal, or the editor standing, the regularity, no delay in publication schedule, as well as online availability. Online availability is key, right? And what do we cover? Later on we'll elaborate, but content available, is it available online? Yes, no? Is it in English language on your homepage? And the quality of your homepage, okay? All this will be elaborated later, okay? This is stage 2 and this is the crux of it, all right? Can you move on to the next one, please? So the final decision, whether or not the CSAB say, okay, I accept your journal and this will be covered in Scopus moving forward, or do they reject your journal? And if they do reject your journal, they will probably give you an embargo and say, okay, it's rejected, reapply again after several months or up to 5 years later, depending on how severe a correction that you need to do, okay? They will give you a decision letter accompanying the supporting reasons and where relevant advice to improve your journal. And I think Prof. Lokman shared with you earlier on, there are some in terms of the different stages of where you're at after tracking and as well as the decision letter from the CSAB itself. Next slide, please.
Oh, I get the white screen again. My apologies. We will try again. That would be this one, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah. I like to spend a little bit of time on this one. I love this particular slide, okay? This slide shows the top 30 countries, the most titles being reviewed. Okay, on the left-hand side is the most number of titles, and to the right-hand side, which is the least number of titles submitted. See, these are the top 30. The orange bar that you see there are those that's been accepted. The gray bar are those that are rejected. So, for example, in the United States, they submitted about over 1,000 journals, out of which about 60% of those journals have been accepted, and about 40% have been rejected. Okay, so that's how you look at this particular chart itself. So over the years from 2011 to 2019, as of last year, about 48% have been accepted. So the acceptance rate is about 48%. Okay, so ask yourself, does your journal is it reflective of the way it's being conducted in your respective countries also? Now let's look at Indonesia here. Okay, Indonesia has about 25% acceptance rate. Okay, so they have actually submitted about in total 193, out of which 48 were accepted, 145 were rejected. So the objective here is to bump this number up. So like Sander mentioned earlier, it is not the quantity that's being submitted. Like Singapore, for example, they submit less papers, less journals, but they get higher acceptance. Okay, so if you look at Singapore here, it's a higher acceptance, lesser rejection. The point being that we want to increase the acceptance rate and lower the rejection rate. So by understanding the criteria, it will then be much, much easier. Look at India. Okay, I'm merely pointing out here is because the point I want to make is that it is not just a numbers game. It is not like I submit, see, they submitted over 1,000 journals, 932 plus 175, over 1,000 journals. Okay, 1,100 journals to submit, but the acceptance rate is about 15% only. So the whole idea is, do not just keep submitting journals for the sake of submitting. Why? Because when you do that, firstly, the CSAB may tell you that it's rejected, and to come back again in, say, example, 2 years to 5 years later. So you're actually wasting that few years of the journal's life. Why don't you hold back a little bit, improve the quality of the journal, and then submit? So in this way, you increase your chances of getting your journal accepted into Scopus. Does it make sense? Okay, next slide, please. So what we have done, we've listened to all the editors out there in the world. We've listened to editors in Asia Pacific, and we said, okay, I think this will be something that's really good. It's called www.readyforscopus.com. This is actually a self pre-evaluation tool, okay, whereby you can now put on your thinking cap as a CSAB and do a self-evaluation of your journal. But you need to be very, very serious and sincere when you look at it, okay? And you must be very, very critical. Try and have a critical eye. Look at the journal. If it's good, say it's good. If it's bad, you need to say it's bad. You cannot say I think it's acceptable, because you are only cheating yourself, and we don't want that to happen. We are here to help you, and we want this readyforscopus.com to help you in your pre-evaluation. So we go to the next slide, Sander. So you see here 0% earlier on, and now you can see after input, once you've input all the information, for example, here under geographical diversity, and you input whatever, and you click yes, you can see on your right-hand side here, the details. They'll share with you the details, whether you've sort of accomplished it or didn't accomplish it, and they'll tell you your readiness, whether it's whatever percentage it is. In this case here, it's 63%. Okay, as you move along the criteria and you start keying in all, it'll give you a final evaluation there. And because you have to input your email address in the very beginning, they will send you the details of it. Okay, next slide, please.
Okay,
so
I
that's
think you have
one way.
marked a poll again. So
yep. So that's one of the ways that we help. Okay, let's look at this.
Okay, 200 people have voted. 250 people have voted. And the results are quite clear. There's a preference for one type.
Okay.
And we'll give it another 20 seconds so that it will have been 1 minute in total. Okay.
And the results are?
Second to share the results. There you go.
Excellent. So we can see here, majority are double-blind peer review. So you're very familiar with it. A small percentage single-blind peer review, 6% open peer, and only 1% that they don't do any peer review process. Okay. Thank you very much for that.
All right, let me
move to the next slide. Okay, so just as a very quick recap, okay, to give you a very big overview right now. It starts with the submission. So when you submit your journal for consideration, what happens then? You are given a confirmation and tracking number. This basically is something very similar like a courier package. When you mail a package out via a courier service, you are given a tracking number. So at any point in time, you can track and see, okay, has it gone through the various stages? Has it passed through stage 1? You know, where has it gone to? Is it being enriched? So on and so forth. Okay. Then they will check against the minimum criteria. Like I said, that is stage 1. Okay. That's very, very important. You need to meet at least stage 1, all the criteria in stage 1. Then you see this grayed out portion here. Essentially, this is the back end. Okay. The back end of it, meaning to say, whatever is being submitted, they will then check against regarding the enrichment of whatever information that's required or missing, okay, when you submit. And then they'll input from external reviewers if there's a need to. For example, it's a very specialized field and they're not very familiar. The CSAB has the option of reaching out to external reviewers for their inputs. Once everything has been done, then they'll pass that journal on to the CSAB. So what the CSAB does is then you'll take a look and see all the various things that are there. Okay, look at all the past issues because you are supposed to submit about 10 journals. 10 articles there as examples for them to evaluate, and then they'll decide. After they've made a decision whether yes or no, then they will send you a response. Okay, they'll respond to you, and then they'll tell you whether your journal is either accepted or rejected with an embargo period, anywhere between several months up to 5 years. All right. So this is in a nutshell. That's the process. Okay. Now I'm going to hand over to Sandra.
Okay, thank you, Derrick. So thanks a lot for providing that overview of that's how the process works. To reiterate, you have to look carefully. Do you meet the minimum criteria? And if you do, then you see that your journal will be evaluated based on the stage 2 criteria. And what we're going to do now is go through each of those criteria in a bit of detail. And I think me and Derrick are going to kind of go back and forth and share our thoughts on that, and hope that PowerPoint cooperates with me. So this one on the right-hand side, you can see it's related to journal policy, right? And this one is related to editorial scope and peer review. So the editorial scope and vision for the journal is like the most important thing in a way. What's your journal about? What's the vision? What's the scope? Why is this important? It should be a compelling vision of what your journal is about and what it's not about. Convincing. So here it says, is the editorial scope and vision for the journal convincing? So this can be scored on a spectrum. So you see where the little blue arrows are, from not convincing, poor, fair, good, or excellent. So when people go to the CSAB, go to the homepage of the journal and look at the vision and poorly articulated, or it's simply not convincing, or if there isn't really a clear scope where, for example, our journal is there, the rest of the criteria are really strongly evaluated in context of the stated scope and vision of your journal, right? So if you say that your journal is an international journal, then the expectation is that it meets the characteristics of an international journal. So if someone said, if an editor says, well, this journal is International Journal of Marine Biology, the expectation might be that it covers international topics, it has an international editorial board, and so forth. So one must think carefully about what the scope and vision of the journal is and articulate why that is the case. Secondly, the type of peer review should be very clearly indicated. So like you said before, I think most of you said it was either single blind, most of you said double blind, a few of you said open. But the more believable that the explicitly stated and demonstrated that the peer review process is, that tends to be better accepted. Because if there are any doubts about the quality of the peer review process, or if there are doubts that it is even happening at all, your journal will not have a chance, right? So one of the ways is to on the homepage of the journal indicate this is the type of peer review we have. You could indicate how that peer review process works. For example, if it's double blind, how do you do that? How do you hide the identity of the author from the editor and vice versa? It's quite difficult to hide the identity of an author because they might have self-citations. There's a lot of things involved in doing that. You might want to actually explain on the homepage how you do that. Makes it more believable and more transparent. What we also see is that some journals on the actual publication show the process of peer review, like manuscript was submitted on this day, received, went to peer review on that day, and then ultimately was accepted on that day, which gives a certain level of transparency to the process. Do you have anything to add on that, Derrick?
No, but just as if you look at the top left-hand corner, the tip itself, exactly what Sander just mentioned, stated very clearly on your homepage. Just a reminder for poll 5, huh, Sander?
We already did poll 5. I think I had it in there twice by accident.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'm sure you guys can recognize this character. Most of you would probably know this character. So what is questionable peer review? So we just covered, you have single blind, you have double blind, you have open. But majority of you said you do a double blind. But we also noted that some of you do the reviews very fast, within 2 weeks or less. So if you look at it here, the first point, sometimes a single review by one main editor and it's super fast review within 2 weeks or less. Or you can even guarantee, we know of some journals that actually guarantee that the articles are being reviewed within 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks. Now, this is actually a flag. Just want to highlight to you. So when we look at such things, you will notice that sometimes journals get very thick, very fast because they are practically accepting every other article that's being submitted. And how they do that is because they do very, very fast reviews. Okay, and especially for new journal with rapidly increasing volume, like I just mentioned. So within 2 weeks, you review it and you say, okay, it must be good. So questions go into the minds of the CSAB members, and like, has this been peer reviewed properly? Is it, if whatever that you said upfront, assuming you say it's double blind, but you actually did only by one person, a single blind review. So it's not, it doesn't conform to the aims, the original aims and scope. Okay, so this is something that you need to take note of. And lastly, we know of an author who serves as his own referee. He's basically what we call, I mentioned before, me, myself, and I. He's the author, he's an editor, he's a reviewer, all rolled into one person. Okay, there are people doing that out there. So we are aware. And that is what we call the questionable peer review. Okay, as long as it looks suspicious, if we feel that the journal looks suspicious, how is it that they are getting so many articles in a short space of time? How is it that their journal is getting thicker and thicker? These are red flags already. All right. Next one.
So all of the content that's in Scopus is peer reviewed, and that's why the peer review, what type it is, and ensuring that the quality is there and that it's a process which is genuinely undertaken. That's really important, not just to do, but to demonstrate so that it's clear to evaluators that this is the case. So as I mentioned, the rest of the criteria really are in context of the aims and scope. So the aims and scope are so important that you're clear what our journal is about, why this is the case, relevance, for example, to an audience or to the contribution to the field. It's very good to be clear on these things because all of the other criteria are really looked at in context of that. So if we look at diversity of the editors, I get many questions about this. So I get many emails or people in workshops like this say, oh, Alex, tell me how many of my editors have to be from other country? And they want a number like 3 or 4, and that's not really how it works. But diversity of the editors is judged in context of the aims and scope of the title. So if your journal is the International Journal of Medical Science, for example, then the expectation is that the editorial board will be incredibly diverse, maybe at least 60% of the editors in other countries, as well as topics and so forth. So if you say that your journal is international, the expectation is that it is international in terms of representation on the editorial board, the topics it covers, as well as the authors who publish in that journal. Quite often what we see, however, is that a journal says, and I do see this happening in Indonesia, is that many journals who are essentially local journals, they're covering local topics, think that calling themselves the international journal will increase the chance of indexing. But actually it does the opposite, because by the fact of calling it international journal and saying in the aims and scope we are an international journal, the expectation is that the editorial board will be quite diverse. So you can see the spectrum of by which this is graded is going from no editorial board. That would be very bad. Obviously, if there's no editorial board, your journal can't be in Scopus. But this, after that, it's like regional diversity of the editorial board is not in line with editorial concept. So that could be, oh, they say it's an international journal, but all of the editors are from Indonesia. So that would be a mismatch between the concept, scope and aims, and the reality. Well, the best match would be regional diversity of the editorial board is entirely in line with the editorial concept. And this could mean, for example, if a journal says, we are the Indonesian Journal of Architecture, or the Journal of Indonesian History, very local topic, right? It's really about Indonesia. But it would kind of make sense if all the editors are from Indonesia, and maybe if most of the authors are from Indonesia, because it's clear that the vision and scope of that journal is about topics that are specific to Indonesia. So that, I think that's a point we really want to hammer through, and we will keep repeating, because it's one of the things that we see a lot of rejections on basis of confusion of a scope and aims, people trying to be very international, but then the reality of what the journal does is it's not that international. You have anything you want to add to that, Derrick?
Yeah. If you look at the bottom bullet point there, we recognize that editorial boards may be artificial constructs, ineffective or non-contributory, unaware of their role, or even dead. Now, the reason why we put that in there is because we are also aware that there are some journals that actually just merely insert the name of so-called prominent people as editors or editorial board members. And these editors may not even be aware that they are part of the board member or editorial board of your journal. You know what I mean? And then they happen to stumble along when, like, for example, we come across a couple of cases whereby the actual member feedback to us and say, hey, look, I happen to come across this particular journal with my name there, but I never gave consent. I never consented to my name being in the journal as part of the editorial board. So that is one of the dangers also. Yeah. So you need to get written permission from the person that you want to be on your editorial board. Okay. Some of them are even dead. Yeah. Some of them are even dead, and they still put the name of that person as an editorial board member. So please don't do that.
Well, I think to add on to that, to clarify, sometimes people are on an editorial board because they were the founder of the journal, and they may have founded the journal a long time ago and be passed away. So they might be an honorary member of the editorial board, and they might even have a little note, you know, this person is deceased. And I think this point is that we understand that sometimes there's reasons to put people on an editorial board. They may no longer be active. They may have been a founder and they may be alive doing completely different things, or they may be passed away. That's okay. But the other scenario which Derrick is talking about is sometimes people are journals are indicating that they have a very, internationally diverse editorial board. They put names on there. And in some cases, the CSAB member has doubts, and they're going to email the editorial board members and say, do you work as an editor on this journal? And if the person says, hey, I had no idea I was on that editorial board, then that's not good news. So please don't do that. If you're tempted to, I don't think you would be, but it's just, it does happen. Derrick, this one's for you.
Yeah, so this is on diversity of authors and reviewers. So diversity is key here, and we want to have a good geographical spread, right? Geographic distribution of authors as well as reviewers. Why? Because especially when you call your journal international, okay, again, it all boils down to your aims and scope. Okay, what is your aims and scope? Is it an international journal, or is it very specific to a particular region? Okay, say for example, a Southeast Asia journal of something, right? So if you look at the range here, you'll see that they have the regional diversity of authors, whether is it in line with your editorial concept. If you mention that it's going to be international, but all your authors are only from Indonesia or only from one particular town, no. Yeah, it's what about the regional diversity of authors? Is it partly in line or is it entirely in line? So there's a range that they look at. So whatever that you state in your aims and scope of your journal upfront, make sure that it's reflective of the authors as well as the reviewers. Okay, a reviewer from that particular region will be more aware of what's happening within that region and can comment and give valuable inputs. Anything you want to add, Sander?
No, I think it's similar to the concept of the editors, that it should be in line with the scope. Yeah. So it makes sense if something is a local journal that most of the authors and reviewers would be local as well. So that can be seen as a very high quality thing.
Yep.
Oh, I get the white screen again. I'm gonna. Yeah, so abstracts. This is another important point. So your journal can be in Bahasa, that's fine. We accept journals in how many languages is it? 45 different languages we have. But the abstract needs to be in English because Scopus is a abstract and citation database, right? So the title needs to be in English, the abstract needs to be in English, and you need to have Roman script references. The full text can be in Bahasa, that's fine. The abstract, of course, is particularly important because that's the bit of text by which people who search in Scopus and they find your article, that's the bit of text that's going to indicate to them what the article's about. it is important that abstracts are proper English, so they need to be grammatically correct. Google Translate cannot. So we see some cases in which people have, put the Bahasa text into Google Translate and some English comes out and they put that there, and it is grammatically not good enough. So you have to really have it written with proper English, the correct spelling and grammar. On top of that, very important to realize that the abstract should be representative of the whole article. So it should include the kind of introduction to the topic, maybe the hypothesis, the methods that were used, and the results. What we often see is that abstracts are only including a description of this article is about the development of this and this and that, but it doesn't describe anything about the method or the results. So it should be really comprehensive and representative of the whole article. And that's really graded on that spectrum that we see there by the arrow. The worst would be no abstracts, so that would not work out for you. Abstract non-English only, that also would not be accepted. Abstracts are in English but unclear and not enough detail, so that is not yet on the positive side of the spectrum. And then the last two is like abstracts in English, fairly clear, fairly detailed, or very clear and very detailed, which is would be positively graded. And this fits into the quality of the content. So on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see which of the criteria categories this belongs to. Derrick, you have anything to add on that?
No, I think that's very clear.
All right, I'm going to try to change the slide, and it worked.
Yeah, so this is on the content of the papers. Now that you've done the abstract, it's wonderful, people can find you. Now they look at the quality of and conformity with stated aims. You notice that there's this underlying theme there. We always go back to the stated aims and scope, which is very, very important. So is the actual content of the title, is it in line with the stated aims and scope of the title? Okay, always ask yourself this question. You as a journal editor, you know the aims and scope of your journal, what you envision that journal to be, right? So only you would know whether is it in line. If yes, you can rate yourself here on the scale of is it extremely poor or is it extremely good? Okay. Next, you look at the readability of articles. As Sender mentioned earlier on, don't use Google Translate. Never ever do that. Try and engage a third party, a proofreader, someone that can help you, okay, have good quality abstracts at least, right? And your articles, okay, as long as abstract is in English, your full text articles can be in your local language, all right? But then if you want it to be international and you want this to be known by the scientists on a global stage, it needs to be something that's readable, something that is actually of value to them, right? So the content is actually very important. So that leads me to my next point on having quality sample articles, okay, for the criteria, which is the language. Again, we mentioned language, and then the layout and format of text and figures, which we'll cover in the later slides, okay? Then you need to grade yourself, yeah? Grade
Derrick,
yourself.
I have a question for you. Sorry to interrupt you. I have a question. I hear that when a journal submits the Scopus, they have to choose some of articles to submit for this part. Yeah. How does that work?
So when you suggest your titles into Scopus, you have to select, I think now 10 articles, okay, for them to check. Now, what happens is that in the back end, the board members will actually look through these articles. However, sometimes if let's say they feel that, hey, maybe I want to just go in and look at, I'm so impressed with this journal, I also want to go in and check other articles within the journal. So assuming you only have 10 good articles, but the rest of the articles are actually of subpar quality, then it'll be a very big question mark whether or not the entire journal is of good or has good content or not. All right. So try to be consistent in terms of the content of your paper. Make sure it's good throughout. That's why you need to be very stringent in terms of your quality checks, your quality control, when you do your review of the articles. That's why I asked you earlier on, how long do you take to review your articles? I mean, as an editor, right? So if it's less than 2 weeks, chances are that it may or may not be that fantastic, okay? But if it's more than 2 weeks, you again need to have some quality control checks, and that will actually determine. And when you select the articles for submission into Scopus, then they will look at that, or those articles plus others. That means they will go in there to take a look. During the next few slides, we'll show on online availability what they go in there to check. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Derrick. That was my question. It wasn't somebody from the audience. I just I think it's something we don't clarify sometimes.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
So the readability of figures and graphs is incredibly important. Sometimes you have a great article, and then you look at the figure, and it's blurry. I've gotten to that age. I need to wear glasses to read properly. It's blurry, so put on the reading glasses, still blurry. This is a problem, and it's a shame, especially if it's a good article, and then the figures and graphs are either not readable or blurry or incorrectly labeled. These are things which need to be good quality. So we really advise to pay attention to the quality of the figures, because it's a shame if that becomes a problem, because the content, if it's good, of the article, it's definitely possible to get good quality figures. So I think it's something that during the review process, if the figures which the authors have included in their article are not great, then that's feedback that needs to be given to them to improve those figures as part of that process. So just heads up that the figures are part of the quality of the content. They just need to be clearly labeled, high quality and readable, not blurry. I think we've seen some quite funny ones, Derrick, but I won't go into it.
Yep.
Oh, I get the white screen again.
Okay, so this is the academic contribution to the field. So bottom line is, ask yourself these 4 questions. Does this title make a unique contribution compared with the existing literature in the field? Now, many a time people, I've received many questions from journal editors say, can I submit this? Is there another journal that has the same title as I do? So my question to them is, you can actually go in and check on the existing titles in the field and select one for yourself, and that's good. Some people come to me and say, I got this title of mine. I've seen 3 or 4 others with the same title. So how? Okay, so bottom line is, what is it that's so unique? Why should someone publish in your journal? Ask yourself that question. Why should someone submit an article to you? Why should I continue submitting it to you? Okay, so as long as I know that your journal is good quality, I would want to submit to you as an author, right? Then ask yourself, is it good science and scholarship? Ask yourself again, is it merely a publication outlet for one faculty? We know for a fact that there are institutions out there, what they do is because they say, hey, we need to get a promotion. So I do not know where to publish. I can't publish my papers. Nobody wants my papers. Nobody wants to accept my papers. What do I do? So they open a publication outlet, and then everybody within that faculty will just submit their papers there, and they publish, and they say, oh yes, I got my paper published by that. So it becomes a mill, okay, like a factory, to produce such a thing. It doesn't warrant a quality stamp of approval, right? And then the last one, publishing all or most submissions. And what is the acceptance rate? I showed you earlier that on average, the world acceptance rate is about 48%, right? And you've also seen the acceptance rate for various countries. But at the same time, if let's say everybody that submits an article to you and you have a 100% acceptance rate, that means you never do a quality control check on it. That means you can review an article within 2 weeks, or people review it in 2 weeks and pass it to you as an editor-in-chief. There's no proper quality control. Okay, if there's proper quality control, you and I know for a fact, especially majority of you have done the peer review process, you know that it takes time to and fro. You may tell them to make certain corrections and then come back to you on it. So once you have ensured that you want a high quality article into your journal, right, and you're very stringent, eventually you will have a high rejection rate of those articles, right? Over a period of time, you'll build up the reputation of your journal as a very good quality journal. And therefore, people will feel proud to be accepted in your journal. So they want to submit to your journal. So you see, it's a positive reinforcement. Yeah. So that is the key thing to the academic contribution to the field. And again, my point to standing on the shoulders of giants, you want to build upon the contribution to the scientific field, the global scientific field. So don't just think of Indonesia per se, think of how Indonesia can contribute to the world. Indonesia is so strong in so many different areas. You can be a leader in some fields in other areas. Why can't you be it? Go for it. Anything you want to add, Sander?
No, I think that covers this part of it. So when we talk about journal standing, one of the kind of indicators that's used is citations. So I think everyone's familiar with the importance of citations. And one of the things that the Scopus team will do before that the journal goes to the CSAB is they will check how many times that journal has been cited by journals which are already indexed in Scopus. So even before your journal is in Scopus, it's possible that journals which are indexed already in Scopus could have cited your journal. So that means that your journal articles would be present in the references of the papers which are indexed in Scopus. And you can do a search using the tag REF, in which case you would search in the reference field of all of the articles that are in Scopus. And you can search for your journal name. You should try and use different name variants that your journal can be referred to. So for example, if it's journal of, sometimes somebody might cite it saying J point, right? They might abbreviate the title. Or if your journal has an English title and a Bahasa title, for example, you need to think of that. And the citedness of a journal is going to be judged in a number of ways. One of them is relative to other journals from the same field, right? So if you're in a social sciences journal, the expectation for number of citations will be much lower than for a medical or engineering journal, right? So it's judged in context of the subject area, but they will also look at, do the citations come from just Indonesia, or do they come from other countries as well? So if there's a diversity of citations so that you see that it's coming from a number of different countries, then that will be preferred. The grading goes from not cited, poorly cited, fairly cited, well cited, to extremely well cited. And this is a journal from Bank Indonesia that submitted to Scopus, I think, more than a year ago. And before we submitted to Scopus, I was sitting with them and we had a look at the citation level. So this actually was done back then. This is not the current citation count, but we found at that point, using both the Indonesian name and English name, so Bulletin Ekonomi Moneter dan Perbankan, as well as Bulletin of Monetary Economics and Banking, we found 101 papers in Scopus which cite that journal. We found 71 of them were from Indonesia, right? So the majority is from Indonesia, but also papers from Malaysia, Australia, United States, Germany, Greece, and so forth. I don't know exactly how the CSAB scored this. The journal was accepted, but of course that's based on everything together. But I thought personally this is a good number of citations. It's not a low number of citations for a journal to have before it's in Scopus, right? So that's one thing that you can do in Scopus. Again, you go into scopus.com if you have access, and you go to the advanced search, and then you use the search, which is right there at the top of your screen where it says REF bracket, use a phrased search. If you're not sure how to do this, ask a librarian to help you who knows how to do searches, but it should be a piece of cake really for you to do that.
So Sandra, just a quick question. Yeah? Do you think during the Q&A, we have time to just show them a sample, how to do it?
Yeah.
This time?
Yeah, I can try that. Yeah, sure.
Great, thank you.
So this is you, Derrick.
Yep. Yeah, with the round head there, kind of looks like me. Okay, so the reputation of the editor-in-chief and his or her deputies or associates. Now, this can be difficult to assess, but because some good editors may not exactly have a PhD or very high academic profile, okay? But we are aware there are people who are actually very, very good editors, right? There are some also editorial managers. Yeah, that means they are professional. Their job is to basically manage the journal, okay? But they are not an academic. So there are people like that also. So, but as long as the editors are good in terms of getting good quality journals, in terms of managing their journals, it's fine, okay? They have a reputation to maintain and they are good at it. Next, we verify their affiliations and make sure there's up-to-date scholarly output, whether you're active or not. So essentially, as an editor, you need to have a link. Yeah, obviously, most editors nowadays, they actually have a profile, either an ORCID profile or Scopus profile, okay, author profile, and everything is updated so that whatever new article that's being published is actually fed through the system and it reflects there in your own profile. Okay, so it's very easy for the CSAB to check when they click on your name there, because you are listed as the editor of the journal, right? It is reflective, and obviously it needs to be either active or not. So majority of the journals within Indonesia itself are active. I also took a look at the discontinued titles in there also. There are about 4 titles that have been discontinued. That means they are not active. They're not active journals, but majority are active journals. Okay. Then obviously they have this grading again from the very poor on your left to a very extremely good standing on your right. Okay. So the standing of the editor is also very, very important. So if you have won many accolades, okay, in your career, list them down. Okay, let everyone see your profile. When they click on your name and they see your institution, the number of citations, you know, so on and so forth, all the various accolades, it becomes very good, okay, for you. Okay, and we always give you a tip at the bottom there. You can see on the top, it says that link the editor names on your journal homepage to your Scopus author profile page. Okay, that's a good tip for you. Anything else to add, Sander?
No, well, I think that there's always questions of like, do the editors need to be researchers that are active in the field or not? And it's good to have at least some editors who do have that, you know, academic standing in the field. But it is understood that sometimes there's a managing editor, someone who's more looking at it from a business and a process perspective, who may himself or herself come from a different field or not have a research background. And that's okay. Not everyone needs to be a researcher from that field, but at least some people need to be a researcher from the field, because the journal is looking to further the world's knowledge in that field. So there need to be people advising the direction of the journal who actually have a deep understanding of the field. And that's why yeah, they do check the author profiles of the editors to ensure that some of them are academics with a good standing in the field of the journal.
Exactly. So basically you have like a managing editor up there and followed by the various editorial board members or people who have academic background in that.
Moving on to publishing regularity. So one of the things that Scopus looks at is the schedule which you have set that your journal has. So again, it goes to scope and vision, and also, you know, if the journal says we publish 4 times a